Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Quranic.com. Today is Tuesday 31st of January 2017 and today the subject is a fixed flat earth inside a firmament in the Quran. Now in this talk I'm not here to debate or to argue, I'm just going to go through the verses, what the Quran says on this particular subject, or at least some of them, and comment on them. I don't mean to be confrontational or rude or anything, but I really don't care how much you think you know that NASA is true or what your degree is in or how clever you are. This talk is more like my video on homosexuality, where I'm not here to persuade or to debate. I'm simply laying out the Quranic evidence, and if you don't like it, then take that up with the Quran. So this is not a persuasion exactly. It's really just laying out some of the facts that if you haven't spent as much time with the Quran as I have, and perhaps in the way that I have, that you may not know. So I'm presenting some findings, but I'm not here to debate with you. So if you send me your questions or your responses in the threads, I'm afraid I'm just going to be ignoring them because that's not what this is about. I know where I stand on this question. Anyone who's seen my other video, which I will link to at the end of this one, on the flat earth subject, will know that I consider, at least for myself, that I have done my research, and I suggest that everyone else do theirs. But a couple of things first. Nobody, well certainly I didn't, and I don't know anybody who did, began with the flat earth model. We all got the same indoctrination. If you went to a state school, you had the same indoctrination. If you watched television, if you read standard literature, we all had the same indoctrination. We all started from the same, more or less the same point. We all believed what you probably, or most of the people listening today, believed. I certainly did. And I was challenged to question that by somebody whom I respect. This isn't somebody I agree with on all points, but I've known him for a long time. And he said, Sam, you're an intelligent guy. You should go through this. Pick this apart. Because I know this guy. I've known him for a long time. But this really pushed it for me. I thought, Dave, I think you might have, you might have lost it this time. But I went into it the same way as I would go into anything or analyze anything. I pulled all the information. I looked at it. I considered it. I could understand that some of it was there's a lot of misinformation in this particular subject, but I questioned it and I did my own experiments. And after it took a couple of months, I did nothing else for a couple of months. I mean, when I get into something of this nature, I'm absolutely laser focused on this, and the consequences to me were quite obvious after even not very long, but I wanted to be sure, and I am sure. So that's me, but I'm not here to persuade you of why I'm sure on this subject. I'm really just here to present what the Quran says on this subject, and to present it from that position. Okay. Now the Quran tells us that we're to follow that for which we have evidence, or rather not to follow that for which we have no evidence. So this is really a Quranic precept. I would also challenge you to be prepared to question your own premises, and also to distinguish between indoctrination, i.e. that you've really accepted without any critical process, and what you really know, what you've proven for yourself. And I don't think I'm going to be too far off the mark if I assume that, like me, you were indoctrinated into a particular cosmology in the same way as we were indoctrinated into the theory, and I do emphasize that word, of evolution. There are no facts for these things. They are theories. Well, I'm talking about evolution right now. And it's also a very old mythology. It goes back, if you read Empedocles in ancient Greece. I mean, it's a very similar type of story. So, but that's what it is. It is a story. Going back to the quote unquote flat Earth and the firmament of the heavens. just leaving aside for a moment, any sort of judgment on this, if you just allow for a moment that this is correct, that the earth is in fact immovable and flat, mountains and valleys notwithstanding, and that the heavens move around it, as people believe for thousands of years, but just for the last 500 we've been sort of taught that was all nonsense. If you just allow for just one moment that is correct, just think of the implications of that. Just think how comprehensively you've been lied to throughout your life, and think how much effort and coordination those lies require, if that's the case. If it's not, if we're just on a dust particle hurtling through space in some unspecific part of an expanding and limitless universe, well, then it really doesn't matter, because you're just an amoeba. But consider it as a thought experiment for a while. This subject is something to which people respond emotionally, and they simply can't believe the extent to which they've been lied to. And I understand. For myself, I consider that I've actually always been awake. I was born awake. I've tried to go to sleep a few times. It hasn't worked out very well, but I've always been awake. I've always been able to see through the lies, and from when I was 2 or 3. But there were still some later periods where I had some, I was confronted with information which really forced me to understand the extent to which the matrix exists and has been constructed. And I understand that you go through this process of disbelief and anger and so on, but I don't really care about that. I don't care how you feel about what I'm saying. These things are either correct or they're not correct. And just like, if you jump off a cliff, you're either going to drop to the floor or you're not. So I'm only really interested to hear in fact, and to be perfectly honest, I've got more time for people who can distinguish between their own impressions and feelings and what can be objectively proven. So again, that's a little bit outside the remit of this talk, but I don't care how much you feel what I'm going to go through now is not true. Your feelings are a matter of indifference to me in this case. And again, I refer you back to the talk that I gave on homosexuality in the Quran. I've had old letters written to me about how I've hurt people's feelings, and people want me to change my position. It's not actually my position. I've just summarized Quranic verses and explained a few points of perhaps grammar or etymology that they might not know, and to form a cogent argument. And that is my position because I accept the rest of the Quran. I wasn't born with this moral position. I accept it as Kitab Allah. I accept it as the Book of God, or the law of God, and I accept it in that way. My own opinion on the matter may initially have differed due to my indoctrination, upbringing, whatever. But that's a separate issue. Now, another thing I'm going to say before I get into this subject is please don't come crying to me afterwards. And I've had messages. Oh, I couldn't believe this, Sam. Yeah, I thought you were different. I thought you were this, and you solved the muqatta'at and blah, blah, blah. And how can you now say this? And oh, now you've disappointed me, etc. I'm sorry you respond that way. It is your responsibility now to grow up and to do your own research on this subject and to live with the consequences of that. So, grow a pair and get on with that one. Because I've done mine, you do yours. Another point is that just to put my work in some sort of perspective, because I get quite a lot of educated people who, they like my work and it's very interesting, but oh my God, he talks about the flat earth and, we'll just ignore that. Well, again, the comments above really apply to you as well. Again, look at my other intellectual achievements, do you really think I'm being an idiot on just this one point, especially if you haven't really looked into it? That's just something to think about. And also, I'm not worried. I don't care. I made a decision and I'm acting upon that decision about what I'm going to do with my life. And do you think that after standing up and speaking out against brand Islam, that I'm really worried about a few geeky NASA fanboys who like the appearance of intelligence but don't have any balls? No, I don't care. So that's just backstory, okay? Please understand that I will not be responding probably to comments that fit within, that I've covered here, because I don't have time. The information's out there. Ignorance today is a choice. If you have a pair of eyes and an index finger and an internet connection, get busy. Now, I'm going to start here with a quote from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And before I trigger too many people who have lots of opinions about that, I'm going to say that I'm not really interested who wrote them at this point in my presentation. I just want to establish two things. Number one, that they exist and existed to my certain knowledge at the turn of the 20th century. And I know that for a fact because when I was at university, after my first trip to Russia, where it was possible to have a real political conversation as opposed to the self-imposed myopia you get in the West, I returned to the UK at that time and to my university at that time and went straight to the huge library which we had at my university and found that we had a copy of the Protocols. Now, they were locked away in a special library that you couldn't get into except with special privileges, etc. I won't go into all that now, but the fact is that I held an original copy printed in, or whatever it was, 1895, in my hands, and I read it. Now, this book certainly existed at that time because I've read an original. And the second point I would say is that what the plan that the Protocols summarize is happening. Now, if you want to call that a conspiracy or a fraud, you knock yourself out. I really don't care. That's not my argument. I'm not arguing for or against it here. I'm just making the point that that book contains the following, and it comes from Protocol number 2. The Goyim are not guided by practical use of unprejudiced historical observation, but by theoretical routine without any critical regard for consequent results. We need not, therefore, take any account of them. Let them amuse themselves until the hour strikes, or live on hopes of new forms of enterprising pastime, or on the memories of all they have enjoyed. For them, let that play the principal part, which we have persuaded them to accept as the dictates of science, in brackets, theory. It is with this object in view that we are constantly, by means of our press, arousing a blind confidence in these theories. The intellectuals of the Goyim will puff themselves up with their knowledge, and without any logical verification of them, will put into effect all the information available from science, which our agenteurs specialists have cunningly pieced together for the purpose of educating their minds in the direction we want." End quote. I'm now going to go through verses and stop off and make some comments as I go. So, Surah 4, or Chapter 4, 199 through 120. "And I will lead them astray." This is the shaitan speaking now. "I will lead them astray, and I will arouse desires in them, and I will command them, and they will cut the ears of cattle, and I will command them, and they will change the creation of God. And whoso takes the shaitan for ally instead of God, he has suffered clear loss. He promises them and arouses desires in them, and the shaitan promises them only deception." Now look up a guy called Lawrence Krauss. This chap, he makes his living convincing people that the universe came from nothing. I don't kid you. This is literally his position. Assumed conclusions, circular reasoning, supposition, guesswork, and theory. That's what he's got. And I refer you to the quote from the Protocols above, because these are the people that's his target audience. He doesn't care about people like me. He cares about people who care what people think. And most people do. They won't think for themselves. They simply won't. And he knows that. And he's right. The next verse is from Surah 2, 165 through 167. And among men is he who takes as equals other than God, loving them with the love like the love for God. And those who heed warning are firmer in love for God. And had those who do wrong seen, when they will see the punishment, that power belongs to God altogether, and that God is the severe in punishment, when those who were followed will disown those who followed, and they see the punishment, and the connections between them will be cut off, and those who followed will say, were we to return, we would disown them, just as they have disowned us. Ellipsis. They would change course now. To continue. Thus will God show them their deeds as regrets for them, and they will not come out of the fire. That's 2:165 through 167. I'm now going to move into verses pertaining to the sky and the earth in the Quran. And while this is in a way an exhaustive list, the verses that I'm going to cover now are representative of the Quran's main assertions regarding the sky and the earth. The first verse here is chapter 2, verse 22. Who made the earth for you a carpet, and the sky a structure, and sent down from the sky water, then brought forth thereby some fruits as provision for you. So make not equals to God, and you know. Now, a quick commentary on that. The word is carpet, and carpet is something which is unrolled, flat. Now, this verse is used by detractors of the Quran, for people who don't like the Quran, or more particularly perhaps don't like the Islamic religion and think that it has something to do with the Quran, which, it clearly doesn't. But they will say, look, the Quran says that the earth is flat. And the apologists for brand Islam, or even for the Quran, will typically make an argument that no, it's not. But it is. That's what it says. A carpet. That's the word. This isn't some bizarre Sam Gerrans interpretation. This is look it up. It's chapter 2, verse 22. And the next word is the sky, a structure. Now, structure is the correct word. In the Arabic, it's structure or building. This is something made or built, and it's worth comparing this with the word for firmament in the opening lines of Genesis, which in the Hebrew is raqin, which is an extended surface or expanse. It's not an endless journey into limitless nothingness. I mean, you may not like this, but this is what the Quran says. I'll move on now to chapter 7, verse 40. Quote, those who repudiate our proofs and are proud towards them, for them the gates of the sky will not be opened, nor will they enter the garden any more than a twisted rope can pass through the eye of a needle. And thus we requite the evildoers. The word here is abwab as-sama, from the word bab, gate. This isn't some mystical, strange word. It means door, gate. It's what it means. In Arabic, that is what it means. So, according to the Quran, the sky has gates. If you don't like it, take it out with the Quran. But that's what it says. And I'll give you the next verse. 15:16. Quote, and we have set in the sky constellations and made them fair for the beholders. Now, these constellations are consistent. I mean, historically, there were basically, for the ancients, the skies consisted of two sets of stars. There were what we call the constellations, and these were the fixed stars, and then there were the wandering stars, which are what are called today planets. But that's a new term, or a relatively new term. These constellations are fixed century after century after century after century after century. This is not consonant with a spinning Earth inside a spinning quote-unquote solar system, inside a spinning galaxy, inside a spinning universe. It just isn't. Is it? The next verse, 1792. Or thou cause the sky to fall, as thou hast claimed, upon us in pieces. Now, as we go through more verses to do with the sky in the Quran, it's quite clear that the sky is something physical. It's made of something hard. It's made of something that can break. It's made of something which can collapse. It's made of something which can fall into pieces. Again, you may not like this. I don't care. I'm just telling you what the Quran says. To continue. And the day the sky with the clouds are rent asunder, and the angels are sent down in succession. That's 25:25. Rent asunder, broken, ripped. This does not fit in any sense with the modern cosmology. And it is a mythology. When you really get down to what you really know about it, it's a mythology. You believe it. I believed it. Okay, the next one is 73, 17 through 18. So how will you be in prudent fear if you deny of a day which will make the children white-haired, wherein the sky will crack open? His promise will be fulfilled. The word here is munfatir, from fatara, which means to cleave, to split, to break apart. This isn't, again, some bizarre interpretation. If you look at, in fact, I recommend that you do, go and look at some compared translations. It doesn't really admit of any other interpretation. Now, if you don't like it, you don't like what the Quran says, okay, that's something that you may decide and will have to live with. But that is what the Quran says. Now, I'll continue. This is 21:32, quote, and we made the sky a roof protected, and they are disinclined towards its proofs. Now, is that not the truth? A roof. This is not some amorphous, expanding, endless, limitless, empty thing. It's a roof. You know what a roof is, don't you? Well, so do I. And that's what the sky is. According to the Quran, it's a roof. This is in complete concord with the opening to the book of Genesis, which says that the sky is a firmament. That was 21:32. The next is at 25:61. This is really to do with the moon. We're taught that the moon is just reflecting the sun's light, etc. This wasn't the belief of the ancients, and it's not what the Quran says. Again, you may not like this. That's not my focus on this subject. I'm just giving you the verses and giving you a little bit of background so that you can understand what they're saying. And it reads 25:61, quote, blessed be he who has made in the sky constellations and made therein a torch and an illuminating moon. 25:61. And the word here is munir, illuminating. This is an active participle. If you don't know what a participle is, it's an adjective which is based on a verb, okay? And it's active. It's not illuminated, it's illuminating. It's a doing thing. It does it itself. And it's this word, munir, is an active participle based on the word nur, which is the Arabic or an Arabic word for light. So the Quran regards the moon as a thing which itself gives light. Again, you may not like it. Okay, but that is what the Quran says. Verse 29-22. And you cannot escape in the earth or in the sky, and you have besides God neither ally nor helper. Now, first of all, I'm going to deal with this, you cannot escape in the earth. If you had the same kind of education as I had, we were given these pictures, and pictures, believe me, is all they have, of a round earth with a magma center, given a story to go along with this image, and I was told that they had some information, they know what's inside the earth, okay, and then they show you some pictures of volcanoes, so you give them some credit. Well, obviously there is some hot stuff in the earth, well, maybe the rest of this story is true as well, and that's pretty much where it kind of stops. But the Quran's very clear, you cannot escape in the earth or in the sky. Now, this information is all out there now. If you look on Wikipedia, you find that the deepest that men have ever dug anywhere, ever, is 8 miles. And this was at a place called the Kola Super Deep Borehole. 8 miles. That's it. And you cannot escape in the earth or in the sky. And they had to stop as well. They couldn't get any further. They couldn't escape in the earth, as the Quran says. But we can't escape in the sky either. If you look at NASA rocket trajectories, they're all arcs. They go up, sure, and then they level out, and then they go down. That's what they do. They have a cover story, and they tell you, oh, well, you have to do this to escape the Earth's gravitational pull and some blah-de-blah-de-blah. They go down. And you have besides God neither ally nor helper. That's 29:22. Again, if you don't like it, okay. But these are the Quranic verses on this subject. The next is 34:9. Have they not considered what is at their time and what following them of the sky and the earth? If we will, we can make the earth swallow them, or cause pieces of the sky to fall upon them. In that is a proof for every repentant servant. Again, God refers to the sky in the Quran as something from which pieces may fall, pieces of the sky. It doesn't say asteroids or some bizarre thing. It's very specific. So if you're somebody who believes the Quran, I do think you have a fundamental period of reflection ahead of you to decide where you are, because that's what the Quran says. So 31:11, 10 through 11 says, He created the heavens without pillars you can see, and He cast into the earth firm mountains, lest it sway with you. And He spread therein every sort of creature. And we sent down water from the sky, and caused to grow therein every sort of noble kind. This is the creation of God. Then show me what those besides Him have created. The truth is, the wrongdoers are in obvious error. And very interesting, obvious error. It is obvious once you disabuse yourself of the psychological operation that's been practiced upon you, you realize what an obvious error that it really is. I want to go back to the without pillars that you can see. He created the heavens without pillars you can see. Now, it doesn't say the earth doesn't have pillars. It says that we can't see them. Again, this fits in with the Old Testament idea of the earth having pillars. Then show me what those besides Him have created. Well, what they have created is a fiction, and it's a demonstrable fiction. And if you haven't spent the time that you really should have done before they clamp down on the internet completely, I do recommend use some time, dedicate a month, get into this. It is traumatic, but it's a lot less traumatic than continuing to believe an obvious error. But what they have is fake science. They have CGI and they have movies. And you can believe it if you want. Please don't write to me about how much you believe it and how stupid I am because I don't believe it. I'm going to stick with what I can personally verify. And I'm guided by Kitab Allah. And you can do what you like. I've warned you. And a lot of people are out there doing the same thing on this particular subject. You can take it or leave it. But I recommend looking at it. Next verse, 38:27. And we created not the sky and the earth and what is between them in vain. That is the assumption of those who are indifferent to warning, and woe to those who are indifferent to warning from the fire. That's pretty clear and very serious. The next verse is at 40:64, and it reads, quote, God it is who made for you the earth a fixed lodging, and the sky a structure, and fashioned you and made good your forms, and made provision of good things for you. That is God, your Lord. So blessed be God, the Lord of all mankind. That's 40:64. Now the word here, which I've translated as fixed lodging, is qarar. And the core senses, look it up in any dictionary, this definition happens to come from Wah, are stationariness, fixedness, fixity, solidity, steadiness, stillness, and rest. I'll give you the quote again. God it is who made for you, the earth, a fixed lodging. Now this simply is incompatible with a body spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, circling the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, not to mention all of the other supposed circuits, circles and movements. It's simply incompatible with it. You may not like it, but this is what the Quran says. Next verse is found at 50, verse 6. Have they not then looked at the sky above them, how we constructed it and made it fair, and there are no gaps therein? Now, this clearly indicates a firm structure with a surface. There are no gaps therein. There is no other way to understand this. Next verse, 51, 7 through 8. By the sky possessing paths, you are in speech differing. Now, isn't that the truth? And on this subject, and those paths are fixed, as I alluded to above, year after year after year, century after century after century. They follow exactly the same paths through the sky because they are fixed. The sky is set. It isn't what we've been told it is. 52:9. The day the sky will be utterly shaken. Now think about that. Try to apply that verse to the current cosmology as intoned by NASA, Einstein, all the other Steins. It's a Hollywood production, okay? That's what it is. Try to apply this verse to that. The day the sky will be utterly shaken. How can you shake something which is empty, practically? Next verse, 55:7. And the sky, he raised it. This is not a bizarre translation here. Compare translations if you wish to. It doesn't say he expanded it forever and it just carried on spinning. No, he raised it. One thing. Whoop, boom, done. Raised. Sky. Up. There you are. There it is, in place. Again, this may not fit in with your quote-unquote education, and you know this may be difficult for you to talk about at dinner parties, but this is what the Quran says. Next, 55:37 through 38. And when the sky is rent asunder and becomes rosy like oil, then which of the blessings of your Lord will you repudiate? Again, the word here is rent asunder, ripped. How do you rip empty space? Next is at 21:05 through 107. And they ask thee about the mountains. Say thou, my Lord will scatter them utterly, and leave them a level plain, wherein thou wilt see neither deviation nor bend. Now, this is at the end of time. The earth will be utterly flattened. All the mountains will be gone, the valleys will be gone. It will be simply a level plain. How does this concur with the globe Earth? In fact, it's not really a globe anymore, isn't it? It's an oblate spheroid, if you listen to Saint Neil deGrasse Tyson. The next verse. Will they then not look at the camels, how they are created, and at the sky, how it is raised, and at the mountains, how they are erected, and at the earth, how it is spread out? Now, the word here, spread out, this is 88:17 through 20, is sutahat in the Arabic of the verb, which means to spread out, to spread, to unfold, to unroll, to level, to even, to flatten, to make smooth. This does not concur in any way with a globe. It just doesn't. However much you may not like it, and again, I'm not really here trying to convince you of anything. I'm simply laying out Quranic evidence. To say that the Quran in any way supports the globe model is simply incorrect. As many of the enemies of the Quran, frankly, and of brand Islam, gleefully point out. 81:10 through 14 reads, and when the writings are spread, and when the sky is removed, and when hell is set ablaze, and when the garden is brought near, a soul will know what it brought. Now, the word here is removed. How can you remove empty space? No, the sky is a thing. It's a roof. It's a structure. It's a firmament. It can break into pieces. It can crack. It can rip. It's a thing. It's a ceiling. It's what the Bible calls it, a firmament. Next verse is 82, 1 through 5. When the sky cracks, and when the stars scatter, and when the seas are poured out, and when the graves are strewn, a soul will know what it sent ahead and what it left behind. That's 82, 1 through 5. Now, this is a literal translation. Cracks. The rotating firmament above us can crack. A relativistic theoretical universe which exists only in films, NASA budgets, and theoretical mathematics cannot crack. It may do many things, but crack is not one of them. Now, the last verse I'm going to bring here, and there are many more, I'm just giving you a taste, and I'm not cherry picking. Believe me, I exhort everyone to read the Quran for themselves in any case, but do go through, and it's not hugely difficult anymore in these days of internet searches and so on, to pull up all of the verses on this subject. Look at them, you'll see that what I'm saying is correct. But this is the last one that I'm going to really put here, and in it I'm going to address one of the commonest attempts to refute what I'm saying here by Muslims, by people who read the Quran anyway, and it is found at 79:27 through 31, and it reads thus: Are you harder in creation or the sky? He built it, he raised the ceiling thereof and fashioned it, and he made dark its night and brought forth its day, and after that he spread out the earth and brought forth therefrom its water and its pasture. 79:27 through 31. Now, leaving aside the fact that it's just mentioned the sky that was built and a ceiling, etc., certain people, certain readers of the Quran who don't want to become social or intellectual outcasts or actually bite the bullet of their convictions, they will point to this, having ignored, as I say, everything to do with this, the ceiling and built and raised, etc., and they'll say, well, this is the argument. That word there, which is translated spread out, that's in some way related to the ostrich egg. And an ostrich egg is round, and therefore the earth is round. Now, this is a real big reach, and I'm just going to explain why this is wrong. So the verb in Arabic is daha. And daha means to spread out or to flatten. That's what it means. And this is the only instance of this root in the Quran. So this is something which traditionalists make rather a habit of doing, is lighting upon an instance which occurs only once or maybe a couple of times in the Quran, and then sort of injecting it with very specific meanings. Usually they do it in order to create a religion or to support their prefabricated religion. Anyway, in this case, claims are made for this verb, which, as I say, attempt to associate it with ostrich eggs and thereby link it with this concept of roundness, which is found in popular assertions, the popular mythology about the shape of the earth. Now, what is true is that there exists in Arabic the word udhiya, which is ostrich nest, which is based on the same root. However, this word derives from the fact that the female ostrich has no nest in the traditional sense, but rather spreads out and flattens a place on the ground where she lays her eggs. And you can verify this. Look it up online, ostrich nest, you'll see. So this verb, daha, means to flatten, to spread out, and rather than actually supporting the globe earth theology, it's actually completely against it. Now, I know how hard it is when you start to realize how badly we've been lied to. We all go through stages of denial, anger, depression, etc. The Quran says at 72:5, we had supposed that men and jinn would not ascribe a lie to God. End quote. But they do. And my advice is do your own research. You're responsible for what you accept. The Quran says at 17:36 through 38, and follow thou not that whereof thou hast no knowledge, the hearing, the sight, and the heart. Each of these is to be accounted for. And walk thou not in the earth conceitedly. Thou canst not cleave the earth, nor canst thou reach the mountains in height. All that, its evil, is hateful in the sight of thy Lord. That's 17:36 through 38. Now this walking conceitedly in the earth, this is something that we see from people who are intellectually puffed up. They really, what they are is weak. I'm not saying everyone who disagrees with me is weak. That's not what I'm saying. But what I notice is that people are fundamentally sheep. They would rather be in the big group, in with the popular people, and to feel like they belong and that they're safe, than to do their actual research and stand up and speak out and man up. But remember, these smug gurus like Lawrence Krauss or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Stephen Fry or Richard Dawkins and all the rest of them are getting paid millions to put your mind in a box, will disown you on the day of judgment, and you will curse them. The Quran says, the day their faces are tossed about in the fire, they will say, would that we had obeyed God and obeyed the messenger. And they will say, our Lord, we obeyed our masters and great men, and they led us astray in the way. Our Lord, give thou them double punishment, and curse them with a great curse. That's 33:66 through 68. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Quran free using the button in the top right-hand corner, or buy the hardback there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Quranite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. Check my site at skypetalking.com for lessons and more. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.